Greetings, hunters! In this video, we'll talk about one of the least discussed aspects of the hunting horn, which is, surprisingly, resource management. Just like with Charge Blade having files and charges and bowguns having ammo and mods, the hunting horn also has to deal with several different resources that interact within a system. Specifically, these are notes, songs, and echo bubbles. Now, this guide assumes you already know the basics of the hunting horn, and if you don't, you can go ahead and check out my comprehensive beginner's guide for the hunting horn linked in the video description below. At the same time, you can also check my other video talking about the core mechanics of the hunting horn in Wilds to get a better understanding of the weapon's goals and objectives. This will also be linked in the video description. First up, let's talk about generating notes. There are three main ways to generate notes in Monster Hunter Wilds. Mainly, we have normal attacks, we have echo bubbles, and of course we have the focus strike reverb. Of these three, echo bubbles are the most effective way to generate notes in a quick and efficient manner, so we'll focus on that first. Echo bubbles have three main uses, and in order of importance, these are generating notes, dealing damage, and providing buffs. We would consider note generation as the most important function of the echo bubbles simply because notes build up songs, and songs have the potential to deal the most damage to the monster. At the same time, echo bubbles do damage by passively creating small echo waves whenever you attack. While this is a good source of extra damage, it comes with the disadvantage of it being very unreliable since bubbles are stationary, and the monsters have a habit of moving around a lot. Lastly, echo bubbles provide buffs when the hunter is standing on one. While buffs are good, these are not as important as dealing damage to the monster. It goes to follow that this also has the disadvantage of requiring your hunter to be on the bubble for the buffs to be active and useful. Considering these factors, using echo bubbles would be most effective in these specific scenarios. It's important to consider that we only have 3 charges to work with when it comes to echo bubbles. So for the time being, a good rule to follow is to strive to constantly have around 1 to 2 charges available for use. We'll expand on this more later. Still on the topic of generating notes, we now talk about Focus Strike Reverb. Focus Strikes are great in that we can get up to 5 queued notes, all while dealing a decent amount of damage. The main drawback, of course, of Focus Strikes is that it will always need an available monster wound in order to function properly, which is why it's not as important as Echo Bubbles. Normally, you'll only really need to use focus strikes on the wound if you find yourself short on songs to use. If you currently have a full song list, then it would be much better to simply attack the wound with your other moves, as you would be dealing more damage that way. Or, alternatively, you could choose to save this wound for a future time when you find yourself short on songs instead. Since focus strikes only give you 5 notes, unfortunately one short of queuing up to 2 echo waves, it would be best to throw out 1 note first before doing the focus strike after. That way, you guarantee yourself queuing 2 songs of echo waves when the focus strike is done. This would mainly come in handy if your focus strike causes a topple on the monster wherein you'll want to do a quick recital afterwards. When generating notes using normal attacks, you only really need to be familiar with the angles of attacks for these moves. In practice, queuing songs will require a good deal of balance between using echo bubbles, focus strikes, and normal moves. One important skill to master is the skill of mindfully queuing songs without inputting unwanted songs. For example, in this scenario, I want to add an echo wave on my song list. Since the Rathalos is flying, I will want to take advantage of moves that hit high, specifically forward slam for note 1, right swing for note 2, and back slam for note 3. If I want to add one more echo wave here, I have to manually attack with the forward slam first, followed by a back slam and a right swing. And I have to do it in a way where all the angles all line up properly. If I was using a different horn instead, I will adjust my combo order and angles of attack accordingly. If you're not mindful about this, you can very easily screw up the song skewed for you, like what you see here. Next, we'll talk about songs. For Hunting Horn songs, we can break these down into 3 main functions, and these are applying self-improvement, applying damage and utility buffs, and of course, dealing damage. Self-improvement should always be prioritized because the benefit of having extra move speed and dealing more damage is just far too important to be left unutilized. You should always have the self-improvement buff active while hunting a monster. When the opportunity presents itself or when the situation demands it, you can go ahead and use your utility songs to provide more powerful buffs such as Attack Up, Affinity Up, Earplugs, and many others. And of course, since songs need to be accessed through performances and encores, by this very nature, playing songs naturally provides a good source of dealing damage to the monster. When we factor in echo waves, the damage dealt is compounded further still. Now, when we look at performances and encores, we already know that these are your most powerful offensive tools. However, they do have certain drawbacks in the sense that you will need songs to do performances and encores, and at the same time, you will need to commit to a long attack animation in order to do so. Getting songs should be simple enough, so we've already covered the basic working knowledge on note generation, so in turn, we'll focus on tackling the long attack animation issues instead, for performances and encores. In practice, these are the best scenarios where you could use performances or encores accordingly.
Let's put them to use.
Okay, so now at this point, we have a clear understanding of proper note generation on one hand and proper song usage on the other. With this in mind, we'll discuss the resource management aspect of the hunting horn in more detail. In the beginning of this video, we mentioned that the three main aspects of resource management for the hunting horn are notes, songs, and echo bubbles. In this hunt, I'll run you through the thought process of taking advantage of all of your resources. As was previously stated, before engaging the monster, we start by buffing ourselves of the essential buffs that we want. For myself personally, I like having the self-improvement and element attack up buffs active for this hunting horn. We engage the monster via a sneak attack and quickly bring up an echo bubble and queue up an echo wave song accordingly. In the beginning phases of the fight, I like building up more echo waves to use for later. I do so by alternating using normal attacks and echo bubbles whenever these are possible to do. Here, Raydao opens himself up for a long opening, so I do a performance to Encore combo in full. This move opens Raydao up for a special wound that can be focus striked on. I do a forward slam to key in an initial note 1 so that I can store an echo wave, a thunder resist song, and an offset melody by the end of the focus strike. This allows me to immediately do a performance to Encore follow-up. Here, Raydao opens himself up for another performance to Encore combo, and immediately after that, he follows up with another move that allows me to do another performance to Encore combo. It's a good thing that I managed my songs accordingly and had more than enough to use at this instant. We keep using echo bubbles since we have plenty of charges to use. Just make sure to always leave at least one echo bubble to be ready whenever you knock out the monster. Here, I quickly spot a tempered wound on the right wing. Popping tempered wounds guarantee a quick topple, so I'd like to take advantage of this soon. Here, Raydao does a move that can be easily countered with an offset melody. After hitting the offset, performance is guaranteed, so I go ahead with one. My song list is still full, so I will input in an offset melody instead during the focus strike this time. It's a good thing that I missed this focus strike on the wound because I suddenly decided to save this wound to queue in 2 more echo waves later after I'll use one for now. Here's another move that we could punish with a performance to Encore combo. Alright, so hopefully I was able to properly convey the flow of resource management when playing the hunting horn. When we break it down into elements and in a more in-depth manner such as what this guide suggests, it becomes clearer to understand the hows and the whys of the hunting horn systems. Although at the same time, it sort of does make the weapon feel much more difficult than it really needs to be, and I do understand this completely. The purpose of this video is merely to serve as a guiding reference for players who would want to achieve more mastery with their weapon. In truth, speaking about this matter in such a manner makes it look much more complex than it actually really is. In all honesty, the more you simply pick up a weapon and play with it, the more you subconsciously master these elements that I showed you by yourself. At the very least, I hope that many of you will walk away with a deeper appreciation for the hunting horn after having watched this guide. Anyway, that's it for now. And as always, hunters, happy hunting! Big shout out to David, my first ever Ko-fi supporter. Thank you very much, Hunter.